So, your organization has gone live on the cloud. Congrats! Now what? Welcome to the critical post-go-live phase known as Day 2. Stick around as we explore the significance of this phase and the need for ongoing optimization and continuous improvement. Hello again. This is RPI Tech Connect, and I'm your host, Chris Airy. We're back at it this week to discuss what comes after going live on the cloud. ERP implementations are heroic projects that often span a year's time and require a coordinated effort from teams across the organization. It's a major milestone and definitely one worth celebrating. But getting to the cloud is not the ultimate goal. It's the end of one phase and the beginning of another. Welcome to Day 2. This post-go-live phase is marked by system stability, optimization, and continuous improvement. On today's segment, we've got a master on the subject, RPI's Program Manager, Mr. Brian Luttrell. Brian has helped dozens of businesses transition to the cloud and instituted processes for ensuring they get the most return on their cloud systems. Brian, welcome to the show, man. Anything else you want to share before we get into it?
Hey, thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me on. Just some quick background on me before we jump in. I've been around the loss and info world since the mid-90s and have done literally hundreds of implementations, more than I'd like to talk about sometime. I've seen the product grow and develop, been very involved with CloudSuite implementations for the last several years now.
Awesome. So I'm going to have you on the show. I think, without further ado, let's get into it. I've got some questions that I'm hoping you can clear up for me. And so the first thing here, so you're live on the cloud. What is the absolute first thing an organization should do after to reach that milestone?
I think really the first thing you need to do is take a deep breath and celebrate for a minute. You just completed probably a 12 to 18 month long implementation, and you need to let your project team recover for a bit. A lot of them are probably doing double duty, holding down their regular jobs while also participating in the implementation. Let them get over that project fatigue piece before you push forward.
Yeah, that makes sense. Once you've given, your folks time to recover though, like where should they look next?
I think there's really three areas you need to take a look at. I'll cover them here. One is the technical care and feeding of your CloudSuite system. You're in a cloud environment now. You're not on-prem, but that doesn't mean you don't have responsibilities just because you don't have the hardware on site. You have different responsibilities, and an organization needs to understand what those are and to make sure, if they haven't already, that the right T people have the appropriate training and skills to maintain the new system. It's a different animal. It's not the same old thing. Then secondly, I think you need to observe. And by that, I mean, take a look at how well the system is doing since it actually went live, and as people are getting used to the new day-to-day responsibility. Allow them to go through a few cycles before you start changing things up. What I think you're going to find is some hits and misses that are going to need to be addressed. A lot of times we'll see reports and process flows. Those are two very common areas that we see revisited following a go-live. And thirdly is set your longer-term program up to keep your system aligned with your business. I like to call it a continuous improvement team. This allows your organization to take full advantage of your investment and keep it current and relative to your business needs.
Okay, got it. Yeah. So that last element there, I think, is the heart of today's segment. And I'm hoping we can talk more about this continuous improvement team. What does it look like? How does it operate? And what kind of benefits can an organization see from instituting a process like that, or a team, rather?
Sure. What I think to be very effective is when a company sets up a process where users can identify the gaps or issues in their everyday work processes, have them reviewed and addressed on a regular basis. This can be as formal as a full-blown Six Sigma CI team, but I've also seen it work well at more of a grassroots level, where a company identifies a person to head the initiative, also identifies super users in each work stream that become change leads for that group and become the standard bearers for the software in that area.
Got it. Yeah. So for the non-technically savvy folks like myself, what's a Six Sigma CI team?
Six Sigma is a program where CI is for continuous improvement. It's a program where there's different levels of education involved in Six Sigma. You start like at a white belt and work your way up to a black belt in Six Sigma. So it's an entire process of how to deal with implementations and how to deal with processes.
Okay,
In a
got it.
Six Sigma CI team, there's typically a whole separate team outside of the implementation team or what have you. So that's like a completely different organization within the organization.
So in this continuous improvement team can be, as I guess, full blown, as you said, or maybe a little more grassroots. You mentioned that.
Right.
Okay. So it sounds like the continuous improvement team can play a big part in how things go after, implementing your cloud-based solution. And I think that's mostly because they're going to be overseeing issues and recommendations that are being submitted. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. And by receiving and reviewing information directly from the trenches, they can truly impact the changes needed to improve the processes.
Okay. And so my next question for you guys is that how would you go about forming a team like this? Does it happen during the implementation? Is it beforehand? Is it after?
Uh, Great question. There are a lot of different approaches you can use when forming your team. And if you can get it done before go live, all the better. But during the course of implementation, I think several people will self-identify themselves as the person you want heading up that initiative in that area. Through their actions and their involvement on the project, they just stand out. You go, I want that one. You can also hold
people, right?
Yeah, you love those people. But then, you also can hold a departmental meeting, discuss the initiative, and say, ask for a volunteer who wants to lead this up in our area. And in some areas, you need to take a look at all the resources in that area, have a discussion with the director or manager over that area, and define a change lead in that manner. More of a voluntold than volunteer, but it still works. And another part of that, though, is, you take a look at that. Not every change lead is going to work out, or some will wear out over time. You got to keep an eye on that and make sure you monitor it and that you're making the changes as necessary. And then on top of that, you're going to need more than just people identified. You're going to need backing by your executives, to give you the funding and give you the ability to execute on the changes that are being requested. And you're also going to need a way for end users to easily submit a change request. In that change request, they should outline what the issue is, what the proposed solution is, and the expected benefit. You'll want them to set up a recurring meeting schedule that allows this team to address those new requests, review progress from previous existing requests, and then prioritize each one as they come through. You're also going to need to identify one person who's going to be that committee chairperson, in charge of the whole thing, if you will. The person could also be one of the change leads, but will also have the additional responsibilities, setting up the meetings, reviewing the prioritized logs, etc. Sort of the admin side of the thing.
Yeah. So I want to revisit something you mentioned there. About this, the change lead. You said not every change lead is going to work out, and you need to monitor that. So, what kind of signals can folks look for to tell, this person isn't working or things aren't getting addressed? So.
There's, I guess, a couple things I would look at. One is the requests that are coming to them are backing up. They're not getting addressed. They're not getting forwarded or getting championed. That'd be the big one. Or not attending the regular meetings. Not making the time on their calendar to actually participate. You start seeing people go, I'm fading out here. So, there's ways, they'll become clear that things are just aren't getting done. Yeah. It's not getting done in that area. So they need to address it. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. And the super users then, they sound like they'd be great candidates for the continuous improvement community. And I imagine it's because they're so close to the day-to-day operations.
Absolutely. They're to me, the perfect candidates. So you really want to leverage the feedback from the people who are living it day to day, right? And using those processes and procedures every day, rather than a manager or director who's looking at things at a higher level and have different priorities. These are typically your super users, like you described. And these are the ones that other people in that area go to with their questions. Those are the people that trust that person's opinion and their understanding of the system, and they make excellent candidates for your change.
Okay. So this all sounds like a great, method for forming your team here, but you've got to wonder, it's one thing to build a process and a team who's going to collect feedback and implement recommendations for improvement, but it's another thing to actually do these things. So I'm curious, how do you prevent organizations from kind of backsliding on these requests and taking action on the improvements that they're coming in?
Yeah, another great question. I think one of the things I've seen that makes the continuous improvement team concept work more efficiently is when companies tie the participation of a change lead into that person's comp plan. That takes it from a do this when you have time event to a, hey, you're getting paid based on your performance on this position. It tends to get prioritized on a person's to-do list that way, and it makes a ton of difference in the participation level. Also, like you mentioned, you have to inspect what you expect, meaning if a work stream brings a request to the team, it receives approval and funding, then they need to be held accountable for the results of that. They need to execute that change and provide the actual result. So holding people responsible is a key part of that, to keeping folks on track. Additionally, you want to keep an eye on the overall picture. You're talking about backsliding. And I've seen this happen a lot of times on ERP systems where the new process is harder to learn or maybe a bit cumbersome. So people fall back to a spreadsheet or a third-party piece of software rather than using the proposed solution on Infor. Those are instant red flag items that you got to address right away. You got to get them done immediately. You want to sit those folks down and say, why aren't you using the provided process? Why are you using that third-party piece? What's it providing that the system isn't? What changes would you suggest we can make so you can use Infor instead of going outside the system? I think one thing you have to really keep in mind is every time you use a third-party product or something offline, outside of your base system, you're eroding your investment in your ERP system and causing considerable additional costs just to support the system as you move forward.
Yeah, so it sounds like, so there's two things I really love. One, this idea of making sure the requests are tied to, the person who's responsible for overseeing them to their comp plan. It's a great motivator. It's a great incentive. And it also it's in line with like you're taking on more responsibility. And as a result, there's compensation adjustment as well.
Yep.
But it sounds like the second thing you're talking about here is that is it not encouraged to like bring in third-party solutions to like solve problems? Is that kind of or what's your take there?
Yeah, you try to minimize that. I mean, ERP systems got started back in the 90s, before you were born.
I was born 89.
It used to be a best of breed type setup because not one piece of software can handle all the pieces. But then you get into a position where every time one piece of the software has an update, it has a ripple effect across the entire board. So you really try to minimize the number of systems you're trying to support and keep connected and talking to each other. So going to third-party system is last resort. It's only if the functionality is not in your ERP system. I've had companies say, if it's 85% of what you want, we're using the system. There's a line they draw so that you don't get into third-party systems that you have to support all over the place.
Nice. That sounds like a good rule of thumb too. 85%, that's pretty good. That's pretty close.
You're going to live with the rest. So that's the way it goes.
Okay. So back to continuous improvement plan. So the team is established. We've got a process for making sure people are accountable for those processes are getting handled. The recommendations are being implemented. But how does that team kind of prioritize those requests? I imagine after go live, there could be, either a lot or a little, and, managing all those is what's the best way to do that?
I think it really comes down to bang for your buck. There's going to be some emergent ones, right? That, hey, this is really broken. We need to fix this right now. That could happen. We're just flat out missed the mark in designing and testing. But once you get through those, I think it really comes down to what's the return on investment for making this change. And each request should include a mini return on investment statement that quantifies and justifies that requested change. I've been involved with clients that have each requester come to the review meeting and state their case. That to present their request, go over the reasoning and provide the anticipated ROI. This is work to read out the frivolous requests, the ones that are just, I want a green screen instead of a blue one kind of thing, and really puts the onus on the requester to defend their numbers, make sure that it makes sense. Once the team has heard all those requests and understands them, then they could sit and have the discussion about what order should we put things in.
Yeah. And so when they, come to the meeting and prepare to make the case for this request, you say, provide the anticipated ROI. Is that like a quantifiable number, like here's a dollar amount, or like here's how it's going to improve like this process, I think, or it's
There's,
both.
yeah, it could be both. It could be typically when it's in terms of production, or a lot of times what you see is I can save our organization 8 hours a day or 8 hours a week in this thing, right? You can turn that into dollars. But when you start seeing, hey, this can make my life simpler because, or we're not processing as many errors, it's limiting X amount of errors that we have to address by doing this, or it speeds this process up by X, you can look at it that way. And it turns into dollars, but a lot of times it's quantified in savings in hours or processing time.
I think you've made it clear now that this continuous improvement team plays a key role in shaping, how organizations going to use CloudSuite or another, cloud-based ERP. In addition to that team, though, are there like any resources available for helping folks get better use out of these applications? Like instead of waiting for a request to come in to be like, hey, this thing is broken, or like we have a better way of doing it, can people be like proactive and kind of like leveling up their skills and getting more use out of the application?
Oh yeah, most certainly. One really good avenue for clients to get involved in are the Infor user groups if they're not already. There's a number of these across the country that are regionally organized. These are run by the clients, not by Infor. So you can get a wealth of information from people who, just like you, are using that software every single day to do their jobs. They tend to meet quarterly or biannually. A lot of them have online forums or blogs where you can ask a question and see how others are doing things. So you're not waiting. You can get out there and ask questions from folks right then. There's also Infor Connect. It's sponsored by Infor and held annually. During this event, there are a number of sessions held with specific areas of focus, as well as sessions where clients could talk about experiences and how they resolve their issues. Super informative, and it's a great way to make contacts with organizations in your industry as well.
I love that you mentioned that. Those Infor user groups are great. And like, not only for kind of learning from other, organizations in a similar industry, like learning from their mistakes and the stories they share, it's also, a great networking opportunity. You don't know what you don't know. And it's good to have that resource to call upon later down the road. In addition to those, I do want to make a shameless plug to our own boot camps that go a little bit deeper. But beyond the in-person event, are there any other resources that continuous improvement teams can take advantage of to kind of better manage the system post go live?
Yeah, I just want to back up one step too. I think when you're talking about making the contacts with other folks across the board is super important. Having that network of people you can reach out to back and forth and sharing your experiences is incredibly important. As far as other resources, yeah, there definitely are. Infor has knowledge-based articles, they have videos, as well as CE release notes that allow clients to look at what's coming at them next. When you're on-prem, when you were on-prem, you can make the determination, I'm not taking that release, or I'm going to wait a couple before I upgrade. When you're in CloudSuite, that's no longer the case. You have a monthly cadence of new stuff coming at you. So it's important to stay on top of it. And those release notes are key. As you noted, RPI boot camps have specific targets, for CloudSuite implementations. We have a technical one that gets rave reviews. We've done a couple of HR payroll ones that are getting great reviews also, and also financial. So that's a direction you can take too. They can really help prepare your team for life in CloudSuite, or taken afterwards, prepare them for life after your go live. And then when you take a look at that, when you look at the sum of user group forums and meetings, RPI's boot camps and videos, and Infor Connect, a client can really leverage other users' experiences into them.
Kind of like making use of the stuff that's out there. But, I feel like you say these things, and it's like, oh, of course I knew that was there. But I feel like a lot of times, accessing these resources maybe falls by the wayside, whether that be because of turnover or, and new people come in and are unaware of these things. So like, what's a good process for, I guess, making sure people take advantage of these things?
Yeah, I think it's something you have to prepare for. People are going to change positions in the organization or leave the organization altogether. You're going to have expansion possibly. So I think one of the things that's overlooked, one of the commonly overlooked tools is the test scripts that clients have developed during the course of their implementation. When you're going through that implementation process, a client creates a large number of scripts and scenarios that they're using to test out their setup and make sure they have all their bases covered before they go live. As you move into post-go live, these scripts are incredibly useful when it comes time to test items that are impacted in an upcoming CU or when new functionality is released. Now, as a client reviews the upcoming system changes that are part of a CU, they'll need to form a game plan, make sure that they are able to test those changes and make sure they don't cause a problem once they're activated in the system. No need to reinvent the wheel. You just go back, make use of those scripts, and help manage your changes. Based on the review of the CU release notes, a client can identify which scripts and scenarios they're going to need to run in order to validate those CU changes. Those same scripts can be leveraged, create new hire training. Let's say you hire a new AP clerk. You can select a number of scripts related to their job position, set them up in a training tenant, and have them get real hands-on experience in a non-live environment. The key with the scripts, though, is to keep them updated as the software changes, so that when you do use them for testing and training purposes, they're accurate and effective.
Okay. Leave it blank.
Oh no, they're like Word doc. That's what it's like.
Like an actual
this,
script.
do that. Yeah, like an actual script. Go to this screen, enter these values, those types of things, just to make sure your processes are functioning.
Nice.
It's great for regression testing when it comes to CUs. Those types of things are wonderful for that.
So it's essentially just like documenting how to do something so that if there is a change in position, people can refer to that and think, hey, here's what the last person did it. Here's how they were doing it. Here's the document.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. Yeah,
Nice.
This is our procedure for doing a requisition. Follow this, get used to it, play with it in tests so you don't screw up our data, and then we'll allow you on the big kit system. Yeah.
Yeah, nice. Love it. That's great. And you're really showing your expertise here, Brian. Hundreds of implementations. Nice.
Yeah.
Well, hey, so we're getting close to time. And before we wrap up, I'd like to ask guests a final question. And it's this. If you could offer today's audience one takeaway regarding post-go live and continuous improvement, what would it be? What's the money statement here?
I really think it goes back to CloudSuite is so much different than on-prem. So I think the biggest thing I would suggest is to make sure your team is really ready to handle all the elements of keeping your new CloudSuite system running smoothly. That can be accomplished with training prior to go live. It could also be augmented by leveraging services from a group like RPI, where we provide managed services to clients that help bring the team up to speed. It avoids the potholes and makes the whole transition process as smooth as possible. This can be everything from assisting with tenant management to CU reviews to creating new reports or flows. And we do this for a number of clients and scale the efforts to the needs of the client. It's a great insurance policy and successfully addresses an area of concern for a lot of our clients.
Okay, nice. And the managed services, like the plug there. Well, thank you so much for sharing that with us. For those of you listening in, thanks for stopping by and hanging out. If you have a question about today's segment or about post go live, we invite you to contact us at podcast@rpic.com. Again, that's podcast@rpic.com. This is RPI Tech Connect, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for having me, Chris. This is very enjoyable. Appreciate the invite.
Alrighty. See you.